So, welcome to another edition of the Diversity Amplification Conversation. Today, I have with me Vidya Murthy, who is the COO at MedCrypt. Welcome to the show, Vidya.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
And the catalyst for this was an article she wrote, make sure I get the title right, Leveraging Diversity to Enhance Cybersecurity. So, first question off to you. Talk a little bit about yourself and then the motivation behind writing the article.
Sure. So my name is Vidya. I've been in healthcare my whole career in security as well. Started out in consulting, moved abroad for a little bit as part of that, came back to the US, joined a local device manufacturer, trying to help with some of the PHI management, and saw this challenge of cybersecurity on medical devices, met a very interesting CEO co-founder, and joined MedCrypt as employee number 3.
Got it. Okay, so I'm having multiple revisions of your article, right? As I'm going and reading and rereading
Sure.
it. It certainly must have taken a lot of thinking and doing to get that article out. So again, what was the motivation behind writing? A pretty thoughtful and deep article.
So I think I started thinking about it back in 2016, right? That there was this very stressful presidential election that was happening. I had relatively recently moved back to the US, and I think there was a lot of very targeted racial disinformation effectively that was being done through what looks like cybersecurity vulnerabilities that were exploited. Having fake accounts on social media that were exploited by Russian hackers, social media is not knowing how to stop them or the ability to shut them down. And then it just continued, right? As some of the BLM movement started going, you saw them being attacked explicitly just because they believed in something that I personally support. And as a woman of color, I think it was important because I've been offered a lot of privilege from an education perspective, from a professional perspective, and most often than not, bias tends to play in my favor. So it seems like a very much missed opportunity if I didn't do something to talk about what this problem is to other people who don't have such a background.
Excellent. So again, one of the key aspects that you brought about over here, which it's starting to come to light relatively recently, right? Which is the homogeneity or the tunnel vision when it comes to cybersecurity from a defense perspective, and yet it's been known forever that the attackers are a diverse bunch, right?
Yeah.
So how has this particular equation worked in the favor of the attacker so far, and then how have you seen, if you have any examples that you can cite about diversity of thought, diversity of action that has actually helped reduce a risk for an organization?
Yeah, I'll take the first question. So what have we started to see in terms of kind of what is this homogeneity and way of thinking for attackers? I think if we look at SolarWinds in particular, just resources alone, right? They had more resources than I think the entire US federal government has focused on this one singular attack. Yeah. And they didn't care what industry it was. They didn't care what the implementation was. They just went for this one exploit and they tried to use it. And I think that goes to what the attacker's job is, right? The attacker's job is to find ROI on their investment. That means they're effectively just have to find one instance where this is an issue that they can use. And they've started to structure themselves like businesses. The way I think as a startup about getting venture capital backing, they have a similar structure in Hackerland where they effectively have funding that's coming in, and based on how efficiently one can demonstrate value for an attack, they're able to pursue getting additional funding for that. And if we think about us as defenders, right, there's that great meme going around right now where it's a guy who's trying to block the wall from the water that's gushing in. And you see that the boss is asking behind him, hey, how much should I budget for ransomware? And it just goes to show, right, that the depth to which we need to defend ourselves is so much greater than what these attackers need to find. And so I think when it comes to examples of like where this has been done well or where it's been done poorly, I think especially in healthcare, we're very frequent to blame our end users. So when it comes to something like medication adherence, we blame the user for not remembering to take a pill. I think that translates into healthcare cybersecurity too, right? We say that 31% of all healthcare incidents are driven by a user who lost their password or caused them to lose their laptop or whatever the case may be. And we think about that 31% and we say, oh, we just have to train these people better. We really have to teach them to better understand security. But I think for people who have been in tech for a minute, we really have to take a step back and say, is training the problem, or are we missing 30% of the use cases? Something about what these people are doing is fundamentally missed in how we're trying to solve whatever problem we're solving, right? When you think about how a product should work end to end, you want to try your best to hit all the assumptions that a user is going to use. And if you're making the wrong assumption about where they're going to click or how they're going to progress, you're for sure going to struggle to defend it because you're not even thinking about it.
So that's a good segue into the question about we're not thinking about it, and goes back to the lack of diversity in thinking, or the conscious and unconscious bias that we have, right? So, and again, this is something that I mean, I've been challenged more than once, and I'm open about it, about the biases that I have. But I think unless you experience it, I haven't seen structural change happen. So how have you seen this evolve, and where there has been fundamental shift versus you can talk all day long about bias and bias of somebody else, but I'm not biased. And that kind of mentality, we really don't make any progress, right?
Yeah, I think one of the great things, being a data-driven person who likes to think I make evidence-based decisions, there's a lot that you can do that is not subjective to demonstrate that there is bias. A great example of this is a study that NIST put out when they looked at a facial recognition software that was used for border crossing. They found that there were 10 to 100 times more likely to misidentify a person of color compared to a person that's Caucasian. That's pretty subjective, right? That's no longer trying to say, hey, Bob, who developed this, got it wrong. It's saying that there is an issue with this algorithm, and we know that. So I think the important takeaway there is we don't stop researching. We have to keep pushing these things and ensuring that these models are actually reflective of reality effectively, right? And in healthcare especially, there's so many interesting treatments coming out of having personalized data, like the fact that you can change how radiation therapy is delivered based on a person, or how a knee gets screened for and resolved during surgery. If we don't do a better job of building these models, there's going to be these biases that just continue as we try to deliver what could be better care for a patient.